Hello and welcome to the 3RPG Podcast, a podcast where we talk about RPG games and other stuff. My name's Jay Underwood.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Sandra Rosner.
Is Cocoon a good movie?
It's been a long time since I've seen Cocoon, so...
like old people making love? I don't know. That's not a good start.
Oh my god. There's so many thoughts going through my head, and none of them are great.
All right,
so no. The answer is no.
No, it is not. It's not a good movie. Let's build a campaign around it.
I mean, you could if you wanted to. Bravo if you pull it off.
Do you guys like bad movies?
BACAI.
All right. So your question: do you like bad movies? I do, as long as we declare it the drunk movie night, which sometimes we'll do on a Friday, and we know it's intentionally bad. So we just make margaritas, like a whole pitcher of it, and then just the challenge is to get through all the margaritas during the movie. And it makes any movie really quite bearable-ish.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of bad movies. I love me some Troll, some Troll 2, right?
Troll 2.
And some Birdemic, The Room.
Birdemic.
Oh.
So, but these are good movies, though. Chris,
hold on, wait.
Yes, because they've passed bad and they've come back around.
Yep, the circular argument.
Yeah, they've come all the way back to good again, but they had to go through bad, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, they still technically are very bad films, but they're just such a joy to watch that I can't call them bad films, right? They're not like something that I'm going to put on my top 10 list or something like that. However, if you've not seen Planet 9 from Outer Space, or oh god, is that the name of it? It's the Ed Wood film. It's the most amazing bad movie I've ever seen, and it's just incredible how wrong every scene is. It's just insane, you know. There's a scene where a character just has to go and pick up a newspaper, and he almost falls over doing it, and it's in the movie. It's you think he got a better shot of that? Because we're supposed to be focusing on he's gonna read this really important headline from the news, but then he does this little stumble because he's it's oh my god.
Let's keep it in. Let's keep it in.
Yeah, just keep it in.
I still have it in a tab open right now from your suggestion of it. Yeah, I'm getting to it.
A character walks through a graveyard and bumps into part of the graveyard set and knocks over one of the gravestones. It's this
keep it in.
And it falls over. They just keep walking. You know, their shadows are cast over the edge of the set, the wall. But it's supposed to look like it's supposed to look like it goes far to the background. You know, but they're the shadows are there. You know. Oh my god, dude!
So is this a drunk night movie or a legit movie? Would you say?
I like my old films, and so I just turned it on, hoping it would just be kind of good, maybe a little bit cheesy, like some of the old sci-fi movies are. But then I just was riveted the whole time.
The Citizen Kane of its time, right?
It's in a way. It's just really weird, yeah. But it's glorious. It's glorious to watch. It's all on YouTube. Anyway.
Speaking of bad things.
Yeah. AI. Yeah. Well, yes, our first topic for today is AI. Use it? Yes. Use it? No. Why? Why not? I'm sure we all have some opinions about that, as do our listeners. But let's flesh them out here, and perhaps people can comment as to whether they agree with our assessment or not.
I think it's like any technology. It's got its uses, it's got its problems, and it could very well destroy our planet. I mean, where'd that come from? No, legit. There's a lot of deep, talk about how unfettered AI, released out onto the internet, could just do many terrible things to our machine, our weapon systems, our this. So those are very legit, but we're gonna keep this to artistic endeavors.
Yes, please.
So in the artistic space, though, I feel like that there are legit uses in your process, but there's a pretty clear line about when you take what AI can produce, which most artists feel like is on the back of their own work, and anonymously, it's stripped of their names, it's stripped of any credit that should be due, and then just because you typed in a bunch of queries, you produced art and suddenly you have a right to market that, to cash in on that, to claim it as your own. So that's the big divide in the art space is
Yep.
where do you draw the line of you actually created something new and you actually and plagiarize is a bit of a fuzzy term in here, right? Because most say yes, you plagiarized, but you know this is the ongoing conversation. I'd say is really the heart of where the fuzzy line has been. How about you, Chris? Have you, fellow artists in your
I
space
I
weighed
have
in on
not
this?
delved into any of this myself. I've never actually typed in a prompt to generate any kind of image or any kind of like song or even like writing a description. I've never used any of those kind of services, and I'm
Oh,
fairly
you
you
stayed
know
pure.
I'm fairly against it because it's one of those things that as someone who's put a lot of time into learning how to draw, I don't see this inspiring people to learn how to draw if they can just create it that way.
Mhm.
It does worry me. It does worry me the amount of automation,
And job loss, obviously. The machines were
career
supposed to
wise.
make like free us up to make art, and now the machines are making the art, and we're the ones who are laborers. So, like, that's a stark opinion.
And the other thing that kind of worries me is that it's only gonna get better, right? Like
Mhm.
soon you won't even really need to the prompts won't even have to be that complicated, and you'll get something great that has the appropriate number of fingers, right? Like,
Always the fingers.
it's a telltale. It's certainly a tell for images. I am worried also, how flooding the market with this kind of stuff, what that does as well. Like when you type in pretty much anything now into like Google Images, half of them are AI generated, and it's a little disheartening.
Mhm.
So
It is distorting the image that we see of the world. Now, you'd argue that the internet already is a filter, one that can be
yeah,
quite cynical and quite twisted at times. But now we've got this extra, like, this is what the computer thinks of our world and our internet and our art and is fishing it back. And it's like, yeah, that could be quite damaging.
so it is certainly a worry. It is a worry going forward, and how soon you'll have like video like Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it actually looks like Will Smith eating spaghetti properly.
It's starting to look
So
really good, actually. That's been
right,
the benchmark, right? The high water mark. And it's starting to look a bit more like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a little worrying. So I don't know.
How about you,
That's kind of
Jay?
my take on it. Yeah, Jay, tell me, tell us.
Yeah, well, I'll agree with you on the artistic side. Me and the lady like to, you know, send each other cute Instagrams of cats and things like that. And now it's becoming that like more and more of the images there are clearly AI produced. More worryingly are the ones that I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I'll err on the side of caution and then just not send those because I don't want to send that back and forth. I'd rather send a cute cat rather than some AI cute cat. But
Mhm.
it's getting hard to sort of recognize them. Yeah, I as uh, a creator or artist musician, I guess. Yeah, I find people that just use that as a stand-in for their own creation is quite deplorable and at worst plagiaristic.
Oh yeah.
The In recent years at the Tokyo Game Mart, a place where we go with Tanuki to sell some of our games, there has been an increasing number of board games that use AI art as
Yeah.
their art for the board game, and people are just totally cool with it, and that's
Uh,
part of they put it on their banners as like a selling point and all this kind of stuff. So obviously, there's something to be the community still needs to kind of like kind of be educated about like how this is hurting actual artists when there's plenty of them out there for relatively cheap. And probably even cheaper still now that they're going to have to lower their costs because of AI stealing jobs from them and stuff like that, which is a very sad thing. Like you mentioned, Sandra, the whole idea of us being the laborers while AIs being the artists is a kind of a world that is a very depressing one, to say the least. Um,
Hmm.
that said, I use it as a search engine. And then not with but then I'll go back and also use the search engine as well, but just to get other non sort of sponsored content. Interestingly, that I got cut out there while I was talking about how I don't like Google because of all the search results are content are
They
paid
all-
advertisers. They're like, stop him from saying it. So like as one might just like look to kind of before starting the creative process or at the beginning of the creative process when you're getting off of like a long work shift or doing something else and your mind's not in that headspace and you just want to kind of loosen up the soil and stuff like that, throw in a few prompts just to get like some ideas generated and literally and to sort of just kick the stuff up and then okay, now I'm in a bit of a space. I mean, whether that might be eliciting sort of like a reliance upon that later down the road is the question that could be asked. But if I have a question about an RPG setting, I don't oftentimes go to try to find a friend that's bought the book. I'll either buy the book or Google Reddit about the book, and I find GPT will give sometimes decent enough answers about that, but also have to be readily fact check because it never wants to say it doesn't know the answer. It just will always just make an answer out of cold cloth, even if it's completely bogus. And you say, "Is that true?" And it says like, "Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Here's the correct answer." Is that true? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Here's the correct answer. Oh, is that true? Oh, sorry. And then I add infinite, but it just keeps giving you different answers because it's just getting the most common token afterwards, right? From a linguistic standpoint. I mean, it's incredible what it does, but yeah, as a sort of art in the sort of engineering space, for sure it's artistic in that way, but as a creative thing, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Hmm. I would
So,
definitely say that I've used it. Not in any kind of a generation. Like my very basic rule is that if I go into that space, nothing comes out of it. No copy paste. There's no whatever was in ChatGPT stays in that screen. And that's a really good way of making sure you never run afoul. You never wind up, plagiarizing. You never, run the risk of losing contracts and things. Because at least in the publisher space, and I think increasingly in the graphic art space, there are tools that are still good enough to sniff this out. And a lot of contracts you'll see have a no AI clause. So if you're caught with AI generated content, you're done. And the industry shares that information. So right now, there's a pretty good protective wall for jobs and things like that because most of the big companies don't want it. They want to protect the talent. They want that. But um, as Chris had said, when does the tide shift? When does the tool become
yeah.
so good that you can't filter it out? So
Or like
um,
it's when is it that you can't tell, or when is it that industries accept it, right?
well, that's the other evil, right? Is given a lack of regulation and oversight and morals and ethics and things, how many companies would cut every human resource that they have out and replace it with a machine, right? Factory workers being replaced by robots, this being replaced, self-driving cars hopefully can now make our deliveries eventually, right? Where automation can take the place of a job, it's been. So why not in the art space, which has been the
Mm.
big you can't necessarily like cut corners on good art, whether it's writing, music, media, cinematography, all that. And if we get to that place within, it could be months, it could be years,
Yeah.
whatever, like, are we literally shooting ourselves in the foot that all of the great ideas that come along with being a great artist will also go away? Because eventually, if there's nothing to cannibalize um, for AI, there's not going to be new ideas.
Well,
And
okay,
Yeah.
well, so this is where I think we don't have to worry too much about it. It'll be sad when the corporate overlords try to just take the AI and save and make more money off of it. That's almost inevitable. But when we say generative AI, one, it's not generating anything new. It's regurgitative AI, really. It's not generating anything. And what an artist does is an act of synthesis in a way. You're taking all these concepts
Mhm.
and creating something else new, and that's what AI isn't doing. And I think those of us who prefer as created by a person knows that there's an element of synthesis going on, and that's what we prefer. I mean, that said, there are, I'm sure, artists out there that use AI as an aspect of their work, and I think I'm a bit more open to that idea in a way of like finding AIs to like make shortcuts or to time save and things like that. As a teacher, the tools that AI has been able to offer, where you know where certain content would take so much longer to create, AI helps it out, which then can just be polished. And I don't consider these things like artistic endeavors really, but more of time saving devices like using a calculator over an abacus or something like that.
So then
Yeah.
how far does that go though, right? Because like, say you want a certain sound to a song, right? Right? Like you as a musician, you want a certain sound like from a song, and maybe there's, I don't know, say there's a program that can do that for you. You wouldn't ever consider using that program as opposed to you doing it yourself, right?
There already are programs out there that do that, and I think, I mean, it's pretty much, I would imagine, the same as when I boot up Logic and I use any of the pre-made MIDI sounds that are in there. Somebody made those sounds for me. I'm using them and assembling them in such a way. So, I mean, going on and just saying like, "Hey, write this for me," and like write this minute-long piece, and then using that as if it's my own. Well, that's not a creative act. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but perhaps using that as that then generated thing as like a sample in a work, or making like an AI created collage, perhaps, right? So like collage use is that like taking a bunch of magazines, cutting the pictures out of them, assembling them into a new piece of art. I find that viable.
I mean, it's long been stated that that is there are artists that do collage work.
Mhm.
And to the degree of using sounds that are sampled in a professional program, those artists did get paid, so that almost kind of pulls back out of the space. So to me, it's always going to come back to, was the artist paid? But these are commercial concerns, right? And we've gone down that kind of a rabbit hole if you're in the professional space. But in the TTRPG space, I feel like it's a different matter. You know, again, are you making money? Are you making a name? Are you making a reputation off of the thing you created in AI? I think that is a good determiner of whether or not you should push that out into the public space versus if you're using AI or your favorite book to like create your homebrew campaign, right? I know that this gets bounced around to a lot of fantasy and sci-fi authors. How do you feel about people using your book in their homebrew and across the board? It's like that would be the biggest damn honor to know that
Yeah.
my book inspired a campaign that people wanted to play for hours on end of their life. So in that in that kind of vein, I feel like using AI to get your ideas, to make your homebrew, to you know get get the best idea you can assemble for your group. I think that's an okay use personally. I'm not sure everybody's going to agree with me on that, but people who don't dedicate their lives to creating stories, like you want to be a DM, but you are an engineer making rockets right now, you know, I think it's okay to shortcut when it's just you and your group. What do you think, guys?
Any thought we have, the language that we're speaking now is sort of a borrowed tool that we've sort of been gifted via all of history leading up to now.
Yep.
And in a sense, there is an element of AI doing that for us. The ethical concerns get into, yeah, where artists who didn't want their art taken to be put out there in such a way.
I personally feel like that AI raises too many issues to be in, at least in my own creative work. The spaces where I've used it have been more like a research aggregator. If I'm searching, like my one example I had for this for this podcast was I don't have the breadth of knowledge that I needed about cultural sea shanties of all crazy things. And I was having a hard time trying to track these things down, in Google, through other resources. I kept getting the most popular, which is, usually Irish, English, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I set ChatGPT to it. Can you tell me sea shanties from the 1600s, from the 1700s, from this location, from this location? And it was at least providing me names. It was giving me places to look, places of interest, and then I was taking those and then hunting them down in, like more qualified resources. I got what I needed. I was able to then get these styles and then write my own versions of them afterwards by doing the study on them, doing a proper study where I feel like, yeah, I did honor to this art. But in that particular case, it was just a real bear to get there through more traditional channels.
Yeah.
So it can be hugely useful in creative works, but you got to then go back and do the legwork to actually, bring yourself up to speed on the forms that you're going to be using.
Do your diligence.
As a method of research, yeah, I can see that. A use for it there, certainly. What about AI as a DM though? Like, would you ever go into a campaign entirely with an AI DM?
It's already built. It's already out there.
Yeah, I know. But would you ever consider involving yourself in that kind of campaign?
I think I'd join. It'd probably just be a very generic and boring story, honestly. But if one can use and program into an app a way that AI can be adapted and react accordingly, such that like what's happening on the background programming end is a series of prompts that sort of channel the AI in such a way that makes it like NPCs in a video game or something like that. You're using these tools in a creative way, such that you don't have to write all these lines of kind of banal dialogue that ultimately we all kind of understand. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Like I could sort of program that in, so that it just sort of generates these phatic responses, right? Well, this conversation is going longer than we may have expected, but I think we are falling into a position here. I do seem to be the most. I still feel I wouldn't consider AI creations art, but I probably have like maybe the most liberal usage of it here, saying that with regard to collage and pastiche, and certain elements within the creative process, it can be a useful tool and also as a time saving tool. But other than that, I just try to stay away from it myself, unless I'm just trying to kind of dig up some soil here and then get the thoughts running. Whereas Sandy, I feel like you're sort of in the middle of the road there, as you've just expressed in your last statement, where as Chris, you're sort of on the more like not at all.
AI, get off of my lawn!
Get off of my lawn!
Stop skateboarding on the sidewalk!
Just to clarify, I think I'd be a little bit closer to Chris's side, but let it make you a better artist. Let it use it to do the things that get you more information, more knowledge, more everything. But don't let it do your job. Don't let it cut you out of the picture.
Yeah, of course, indeed.
What I worry about are those like shortcuts though, that people aren't researching enough. They're just like accepting things as they are, and I
completely agree.
I'm someone who likes to do legwork. I love looking into cultures. I love creating naming and naming systems, and like I don't know. Maybe there's a pride to it that just.
But you're finding you're finding that information on the internet, right? You're not like walking to the library and finding the original texts and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but I find it different than just simply just like typing in like da-da, and then you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like often the things that I find, I end up spending days going through, like, just to get all these little details about certain deities and things like that, and it's very enjoyable, I find.
And that
I don't
won't
know.
be taken. That won't be taken away by.
Wow. Yeah, I guess not.
And if you're cold dead hands,
Will it?
Chris, cold
Will
dead
it?
hands.
I don't know.
Unless all the those sources where you're getting that information closed down, well then, and due to AI, well then color me stupid.
Donate to Wikipedia, everyone.
I guess I finally have to donate.
For just $2.50, guys.
Total non sequitur. There's a great Instagram channel called The Depths of Wikipedia, which everyone should check out. And it's I think just one lady who goes around and finds all these really bizarre Wikipedia pages and just posts them as that's the picture on Instagram,
Fun.
and they're just really fun. Like apparently there's like a Donald F. Trump, who like can't stand that he's so close to Donald J. Trump, and like it's like that's like a whole page. Anyway, it's a real interesting thing.
Okay, there is a depths of Wikipedia page, which is I just find really funny.
Uh,
There you go. There you go. What's the at the time of this recording? What's the most recent one here? It's the Donald L. Trump. Yeah.
I thought we weren't going to get political.
Yeah. Right. Sorry. Yeah.
I mean, Instagram did it for us. Whoops.
Okay.
Yeah. Central Bank of India. The Central Bank of India (CBI) is an Indian public sector bank based in Mumbai. Despite its name, the Central Bank of India. There you go.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, and then there's a man named Guy Standing, and this picture of him is Guy Standing sitting. Anyway, all right. With that note, let's pause for our ad breaks. How do I stop this? All right. Now we are back to talk about tension.
Tension.
Tension. Yeah.
Tension.
How to generate, how to create tension within your game setting. Who wants to jump in here?
Immersion.
You're all now dead.
We talk about this all the time. It's all about immersion.
Mm.
It is essential to building tension. If you don't care about the characters, relationships, the world, if you don't care about any of that happening, you're not going to get any tension.
Staying in character.
Yeah.
So by staying in character, you're allowing for the opportunity for emergent tension to arise. If you're making jokes, people are getting Mountain Dew and Doritos and whatnot and stuff like that. Like it's unlikely you're going to get any tension. But the moment you allow yourself to be in the moment, invested in the game, then you immediately allow for tension to start kind of building up over time. Yeah. I agree with that. Music, of course. Playing or the lack of music. If music is often playing, there can add a sense of like something missing, or that either that's something missing or something there that just adds that tonal ambiance of which tension is one, right? An ambiance of a party in the background brings in the feeling of joy. The feeling of stress or the feeling of tension can be done the same way by suddenly putting some kind of dissonances in the background, which will get your players on edge and your characters then likewise on edge.
Next one that I would say would be like establishing like a desired outcome. Now this could be like a personal goal or a group goal, but you got to make it clear what they're trying to accomplish. And by doing so, you are pretty much also establishing the consequences of failure, which are when things don't work out, how is this going to affect the characters' relationships or world? That is also essential for, I believe, for building tension. is knowing what are the stakes, pretty much, right?
And making clear the kind of
Mhm.
in a sense the social contract of the rules / steps that need to be taken in order to achieve that end. Okay, I want to kind of disarm the bomb, as it were. Okay, well, you've got to do these, 6 things or these 6 checks.
Yep.
And for each one you fail, this happens, or the slider starts to kind of move over towards like the kaboom, and therefore each of the rolls can become subsequently more attention building. And so in this case, what I'm implying here is the the direction towards the goal over time, rather than a single die roll, will create this ongoing sense of tension, which then can be kind of recorded on a scale of sorts, with a time limit in game, i.e., amount of rolls, or literally, you got 2 minutes in real time to do this thing. Could add real moments of tension within the game.
Ooh, I like those too. When you have like an actual like out of game time limit.
Like a meta level.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then.
So that sounds like examples of outside pressure too. So I'm sure we're going to get there, but also internal pressures, character pressures, things that they're feeling, their hopes, dreams, wants, stated or otherwise, to the team, even to the DM at times. So I'd say that the not necessarily easiest, but if you have a short-term campaign or a one-off, your easiest tension builders are going to be these external factors: your ticking clocks, your bombs, your disasters, your runaway trains, right? Trying to build those internal pressures for the characters, that takes time, that takes development. So if you're under the gun, so to speak, to get your campaign going and done, definitely focus on the outside pressures.
Another element is to um, throw a completely unpredictable thing in the middle of a encounter, that will then therefore it like heightens the tension, as it were. You've already got some tension. We're talking about increasing tension here, so
You mean a twist?
but throw it, well, a twist. Twist, you have to be careful with the twists sometimes, but like simply an NPC character does something that is unexpected, or an NPC character or even a player character dies doing something that is unexpected. Somebody shows up that was unexpected. The mission was X. We're halfway through completing mission X, and now the mission is reverse X, because Y happened, and now that's immediately tension. Now we've got to think. We had the planned goal, the strategy for getting into the base and stealing all the treasure or whatever. But now this happened, and now we need like triage for the blue wizard who needs food badly. To hashtag save the wizard. Exactly. uh, was my gauntlet reference missed there? Green wizard needs food badly. Okay, anyway.
I didn't really play it all
showing
that
my
much.
age here. Okay, anyway. So, it's
vintage, guys. It's vintage. It's not old.
Like it smells like a vintage couch. So yeah.
Oh God! What are you saying?
I'm building tension, unpredictability.
Okay, some things you should not buy vintage, perhaps.
I mean, that said, simply throwing something unpredictable in there doesn't necessarily lead to tension, right? So, like, if I reach into my pocket and find like a $20 bill that I didn't spend, I'm not like, oh, tension! Like I get all upset. Well, though mildly, perhaps I'm like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Who put this in my pocket? Why do I still have this extra money?
Yeah, you can take that in a lot of directions. Where did it come from? What if you had nothing to your name? You're starving. You're the starving wizard right now, and suddenly $20 appeared, right? Like, there's all sorts of
earlier,
little details
can
some
guy
things.
Was like, "Hey, where's my $20?"
Yeah.
Right? And then you find it in your pocket. You're like, "Oh,
he's gonna come beat up the wizard."
Yeah. Or
Coming for
setting up an
you.
expectation and then having that expectation go in a way that is sort of like inopportune for the player. So one must be careful when you add these additional elements that the additional element doesn't come across as like humorous or silly or relieve the tension. If
Mm.
that what you're trying to do is build tension, because nothing's worse than that than making like a fart joke during a horror scene or something like that. You know, like the cow. It's like it was just nervous energy. Like the characters are in the elevator going down to like basement sublevel 4. Like,
God. The audience can't see me right now, but I'm shaking my head. I'm reliving a
yeah.
COC right now, and it's like, why did you do that?
That said, that could be really fun because if you bring in that little moment of levity, then when the tension comes back, it comes back. Oh wait, no, it's really serious, right?
Yep. No. That is one of the things that I have
True,
actually
true.
written down is reprieve and breathe. Like for I guess these are more for like longer form campaigns where like having tension all the time is actually a bad thing, right? You don't want to stress them out way too much because then that can lead to just surrender or like or just like the feeling of just being overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And the way that I tend to do it, just as a general rule, is kind of like build tension like up 3 and then down 1 and then up 3 more, kind of like that kind of way.
So
I like to think about it as rich foods, right? If all you do is
Mm.
eat like cream puffs all the time, that it doesn't matter after a while. It's like whatever, I've had cream puffs, who gives them, you know? So you definitely can't have the rich, the hyper spicy, the this like it you grow dead to it. And another good example of that is if you know anybody who works in stressful environments, people in the military, people in the medical field, you know, ER doctors, things like that. You talk to any of them, and the ones that you know last in that or thrive in that environment long term, the gallows
Mm.
humor. That's what that is. You've learned to adjust and adapt, and it's going to take an awful lot to knock them off
soldiers.
balance at this point. Your players will develop the same resistance.
Yes, indeed. So you were alluded to something earlier about the cream puffs, or like a choice, or was it just me thinking in the back of my head? But I think another intention is like, okay, let's say they finally get to the end of their path or midway through their path where there was something expected that was coming out, and this expected thing was going to be good. Well, rather than say, "Oh, well, here comes the baddie to steal it away from you," tension. No, let's say they finally achieved the good thing, but it comes with another good thing that's equally, but like oppositely good. But only one of them can be had. Oh no! And now I got to make a choice between like A, which is
Ooh.
Oh,
awesome, and B, which is also awesome. And this is what makes like uh, uh card playing games, CDGs, really interesting board games where a card has sort of multiple uses. So one of my favorite board games of all time, Here I Stand, which is about the Protestant Reformation, fun time for everybody. It has have these cards that you can play them for the event, which do like a certain thing kind of globally in the game world. You've got the sort of point value on them, which is sort of like action points, sort of money. They've got all these certain different values. They can be exchanged, traded for kind of like hostages, or boats, or all these sort of they have all these sort of like values above the table and within the game as well. So that kind of interesting thing. Um, which then gets me to another point, which is tension via the one use item.
Ooh.
Um,
oh, the thing you'll
yeah,
never
like
use if you're me. No, there's always a better
yeah,
time. There's
I'm
always a better
notorious for
time.
playing like my JRPG games on like the PlayStation or wherever. I'll just accumulate all the items and never use
Oh
them.
yeah.
I never use. I'd
Yeah.
rather die and then restart and try to
Why are
get
my
through a
99
boss
bags
battle
full?
without using any of the
99
healing.
potions,
Yeah,
99 ethers, 99 phoenix downs.
yeah, and never use any of them exactly.
I want to meet the person who does use them. I need to know who
Yeah.
uses them.
So
I
there's
don't
an
know
inherent
anybody
tension
who
to giving
does.
the okay, you can use this once per this adventure, and you're never gonna get it again. It's just like, oh no, when is that time? I mean,
Oh, that goes in the bank as my little museum, just like in WoW. My whole bank's nothing but a museum
Never
of
use
things I
them
can
again.
never
Yeah,
get
yeah.
back.
But when you do use it, it's usually spectacular.
The release, yes.
I wouldn't know.
You would never know.
Literally, things from vanilla are sitting in that bank. It's ridiculous. No one will ever see it either, unless it's on stream.
Another way
Oh.
to bring in tension is to is to incorporate, depending on what some game systems have tension built into their game design. So 13th Age is one of them that comes to mind. Dread is another that comes to mind, which we've brought up on this show before. Dread being the game where you use a Jenga tower to make dice rolls, and when it collapses, that's when someone dies or something very dramatic happens.
What was the one with the candles?
13 Candles, I believe it is another one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's 13 Candles. Okay.
And 13th Age has or 10 Candles, I forget what it's called. And 13th Age has a kind of a way to make combat sort of as the longer the combat goes on, the more deadly it gets, because you have like an escalation dice that just grows, and every round of combat, everything's going to get more. So you either run away or you keep going, run away or keep going, and it stops those like long slogs where like you've realized the combat academy has gone into the player's benefit, like it's a system like 5e, but then you're just going to do the kind of like the just the mechanics of going through the role where both players and GM have stopped kind of like making the narrative descriptions of their attacks, because it's like, I know I got three more rounds before this guy's dead, but it's like I don't want to tell I hit him with my sword. Okay, just come on. Okay, he's dead.
How many
okay,
times?
He's dead. Yeah.
How many different ways can I describe the rogue using a sneak attack? Right?
Yeah. So those type of systems inherently add some tension to it. Like dexterity games could add some sort of meta level tension to a system. Having a campaign encounter, and I know you love this, where in the different players' skills are all being kind of triggered at once. So you've got the fighter who's sort of fighting off all the hordes of kind of mooks, where the wizard player in real time has been given like a cryptic message, and the player, not the characters, having to like decode this message before the room floods or whatever, and like adding all those elements kind of adds a real fun kind of memorable gameplay encounter through these kind of like reinforcing elements that all lead to a sense of tension, right?
You give me an idea though. Like you play enough campaigns, you play enough games, you tend to gravitate towards certain types of classes, things that you feel like you somewhat excel at. I'm just thinking, like, if I had to play a campaign where I absolutely couldn't play my normal classes, the things I know, the things I could really do well. Like, no, you are now a barbarian for this campaign. I'm gonna feel pretty tense about that, because I'm gonna feel terrible. I'm gonna feel like I suck at it all over again. So a strange way to add tension is to perhaps push your more experienced players to suck
To try
for a
something new,
while.
right?
Yeah, I've got another one in my back pocket here, which is, and let me go about it via description rather than just saying exactly what it is, because it's a little bit more tricky to explain. And maybe you guys can give it a name that doesn't come to mind at the moment, which is sowing doubt into your players as a DM, in whatever way you see forth. So, how it works in my system, a lot of times the political mechanisms of the world are determined by other actual people who are not playing the game at that time, but I know certain outcomes that players don't know. So I'm not necessarily reacting to what the players are doing in world, but having to sort of respond to them with something that they may not be aware of has happened already until they kind of get to that location. And then me just feeding that essence of doubt into their head. Oh, but you think it really? Like, you're pretty sure it went that way, but are you sure? And they're having to consider like what the king did on the opposite side of the world what decision they made that's going to really impact their life. Should I send that carrier pigeon over there? But if it gets intercepted along the way, that's going to really bring us trouble. And no one's looking for it, right? Yeah. No one's looking for it. And then as the GM, you just subtly hint towards like possibilities that there might be someone looking for it, and now they start second guessing, and now you've added sort of like tension to the decision making process. And this is like tension that's not in combat, and tension that's just in the planning stages, via doubt.
What the viewers also can't see is that I'm glaring at Chris right now. We've experienced this phenomenon. I only found it way later that he was part of this diabolical plan by Jay. But yes, there's still a little harshness between what he did.
Well, it's all in the name of role playing.
No, it was amazing. I mean, it should show that there's still a little bit of a to me, right? And this is years ago, right? So, if you really want to have some lasting feels about that campaign, this is an amazing way
Chris
to do it.
to be part of your game world. Yeah.
Hey, just send me a message and I'll help you out. I'll mess up some players.
I'll torture your campaign.
If anyone's listening to this podcast, sayonara your email box. You need a new mail account now. Anyway, anything to say in summary, everyone?
Well, there's some other ones that I have written down, like foreshadowing, like giving kind of like little hints of what is to come, right? That can certainly help to build tension, right? Like say under the fingernails of the fallen baron, the words in the abyssal language, Ergai Selu Rakasav, all will eat as tattooed in carmine ink, right? When you hear that kind of stuff, you're like, ooh, what's coming up? What's happening?
Hunting some mythical beast. They get a little bit closer. They see some footsteps, and they see some fur. Then they see like it's den, but it's not there. And just like the breadcrumb trail. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
But also information in general. Like introducing more information can also build on the severity of like the consequences of failure. Like descriptions of events or atmosphere and like surroundings that can also alter the way that we perceive those dangers. Pacing is another thing, of course, like having cliffhangers at the end of your sessions, climactic events.
Turn the page.
Right.
Turn the page.
It just keep that tension moving, right? And another thing would be like additional desired outcomes. So like when the desired outcomes of the PCs and like the group combine, right? Like the two PCs have a goal that suddenly, they find out that the person that they're after is the person that killed their father, right? Like, the tension builds exponentially on that as well. The consequences, the outcomes and consequences also grow exponentially, right?
Yeah, foreshadowing and the lack thereof of foreshadowing as well. Like when something expected, but we've touched on that earlier. But like expecting something to be there and it isn't. So like not getting the details, and this can be done in such a way that maybe like we're and again this connects to, they're all sort of it's like a Venn diagram of things, but like the tension that is involved in thinking that something might be some way, and then whether it reveals to the positive or the negative, it's that hanging quality, right? That's inherent in tension. So in a couple of sessions, a few sessions earlier, I don't know if I managed to quite get the moment of tension, but since the world we play in is generally pretty violent and dangerous, there was a character who finally found somebody that seemed to be a very kind of supportive and friendly chap, and that already brought up some alarm bells, because like, who's going to be friendly in this area? No one's going to be friendly, and then if we were watching the movie, they would have recognized immediately who this person was. But since we're playing in a sort of audio format here, vocally, I could sort of just fail to bring up certain physical characteristics of this person until the moment when then they say, "Oh, it was him all along," and then but that the character who was with him didn't notice that there was like this other villainous character who killed a party member, and but has been sort of nursing back one of the other injured characters back to life, and slowly kind of weaning him over to his side. And then the reveal of the character was that this relief of tension, perhaps.
But narratively, their character had
that's
never
how it
met
worked. That's how it worked.
the baddie, right? And it lucked out that the player also didn't know who the baddie was for missing sessions. So it's beautiful. We know, we all know, and we would have known in game if we'd seen them. So really strange twist there. It's cool that we all are waiting for that light bulb moment to go off for the player and that character. It's beautiful. It's just it's amazing.
Anything else, Chris?
Well, we've gone pretty much over all the things. Time and opportunity, limited resources, conflict and obstacles, foreshadowing, mini failures and setbacks. Get a little bit of taste of defeat, but not a mouthful, right? Information, pacing, additional desired outcomes, the unknown, of course, and the meta, like sound effects, props, acting, anything outside the game itself, mechanics, musical cues, music.
Now you're just listing up everything involved with D&D.
Hey.
I have a shorter list. These are all like subcategories. These are all the knobs that you can. But for me, if I'm designing the a tension arc for, the same goes for stories, but it's slightly different because you're in control of everything, even the character reactions, right? So this is specifically for tabletop. For me, it is what are the number of outside pressures you want your players to conquer? This is something that we normally define by genre if we're writing. Cozy mystery, you want it very slight. You want like a nice train ride through a valley that maybe there's a storm coming, right? These readers don't want a whole lot of crazy jump scare or anything like that. In a romance, you can have tumultuous stuff, but you have to get to the end of the line. It's guaranteed that the train starts at point A and ends at point B with a happy ever after, right? So if you picture in your mind, what is the genre of your campaign? And that's going to dictate how much conflict and how high those dials go. So once you know that story you're playing, that's a huge outline for how much of these tension moments to bring in. Your number of players and your length of campaign, obviously, because that's how long you have to boil this frog, right? And the rules of your game, of your campaign. Is lethality a big thing? Because man, that's tense, and some players just don't want that, right? But lethality is a big deal if you do play with it. But don't always just rely on that. Like, you can't constantly be threatening your players, or they're going to be like, fuck it, I'm not committed anymore, because if I am, I'm going to get my heart broken by session 50, right? But yeah, so look at your allowed elements, and even your individual session lengths. Do you have the time to really bake that arc for one character? Like, it's their time to shine. Do you have the time to really fulfill that tension arc for them? Or is this something you should chop up or wait for another time? So these are my levers. And then we sprinkle in all the things that Chris said as the ways we do it.
Excellent. And that seems as good a conclusion as any. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.
Okay. Very cool.